Good evening. The time is now 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you all please join me in standing? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here. Tom Sinkowitz. Here. Gary Stelman. Here. Don Gisella. Here. Amy Gorman. Andrea Ferrari. Here. Linda Bedore. Here. He's here. Our first order of business is the review and acceptance of the minutes from the meeting on May 2nd. Are there any questions or corrections that need to be made?
I move we accept the minutes.
Don has made a motion to accept the minutes.
I second that.
Tom has seconded it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Motion passes. Okay. At this time, I would like to quickly recognize the selectmen for some information to be passed on.
Thank you, I do appreciate that. For the members of the board and for the public, I was working with the town attorney for clarification on the town charter and what issues we have with it. And he stated that, because we were so concerned with section 2.4c, he replied back to the language in charter section 2.4c makes clear, patently clear that town budget is rejected should any one of its three parts fail, and he states, coming directly from the actual charter, in order for the town budget to be accepted, the majority of those voting at the town referendum or town meeting must approve the annual operating budget for the town, comma, the capital budget, comma, and the education budget. A vote to reject any of the three budgets will constitute in a rejection of the town budget. Because, and then it goes on to say that because of the annual operating budget that was rejected, the town budget was rejected. If it has to be resubmitted to the voters, again, it's in three parts. The language goes on to authorize the Board of Finance to consider the votes to the opinion of the voters with respect to those parts of the town budget. I would just like to add my own part to that. I do understand how the votes came out. I do have the numbers in case anybody wanted to see for verification, because we did have a recount immediately after because it was so close. There was minor changes in that recount numbers, but the town side of it actually lost by 4 votes. The Board of Ed passed by 10, and the 5-year capital passed by 20. My recommendation only as an ex officio member is one thing and one thing only. Town side of the budget failed. I would request, or respectfully ask you to put questions back on, not to make any changes to the Board of Education, but if you're making changes to the town. That's it.
Thank you. All right, before we go on to any other new business, I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda for tonight. So if someone would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
And what is your motion?
First, to add public participation.
Okay, and where would you like that?
I guess D, yeah.
Okay. All right, so first motion is to add to the agenda public comment or participation toward the end prior to adjournment. The motion has been made by Gary. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a dual second here, so Don, you're sitting closest to me. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, that motion carries. All right. Again, before we go on to new business, I know that there is another amendment that would like to be made, so I will entertain that motion as well.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to add to the discussion the Board of Education's portion of the budget.
Okay. The motion has been made by Gary to add discussion on the Board of Education's portion of the budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Do I have a second? Without a second, I don't believe the motion carries. Okay. Are there any other amended motions that would like to be made at this time? Okay. If not, we will move on to new business. And the first item is to discuss and approve the suspense list as presented by the town tax collector. And I believe that she sits in front and center of the guest.
This is my annual suspense list. As you all know, I do it every year. These are accounts that either they moved away, the bankruptcy passed away, just uncollectible. I wipe them off, but they're still collectible up to 15 years. This year I did contact the collection agency, so I'll be submitting my suspense list right to them to see if they could try to get the money.
All right. Do we have any questions for the tax collector on the suspense list?
I have a question for the selectmen. Can I do that?
Let's finish this. So do I have any questions for the tax collector on the suspense list? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
My name's not on it, so I'll make a motion to move it forward.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. So we have a motion by Tom and a second by Tom to accept the suspense list as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, at this time, the next order of business is to consider and act upon the town portion of the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024. I would like to open up the comments with my thoughts. When we received our original budget back in February 23rd, the increase was $1,334,140. With a mill rate of 21.22. After a couple of adjustments, including the latest cuts, the increase is now $722,684, which brings the mill rate to 20.88. I would like to also note that we made a cut of $650,000. $400,000 of that was from the education side, which was 61.5%, and $250,000 was from the town side, which is 38.5%. If my math is correct, if we cut another $17,000 from the budget, we will actually cut the increase in half from where we started. So with that being said, I would like to ask for some additional input from the board as to what they feel is a fair and equitable cut. One thing we also, regardless of what we do, not everybody's going to be happy. But we have to do the best that we can with the information at hand to find ourselves with an operating budget that will meet the needs of the residents of town in as a fair and equitable manner as we possibly can.
I can answer the question.
Yes.
Do you have the total number of attendees or voters from Monday?
276.
276. So what we're saying, and I want to make sure, I want to make sure this clear. So the budget lost by 1.4% of the voters present on that day.
Not sure the calculations, but if you say so.
276 votes.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
What was that number?
Yeah, if we cut an additional $17,000 off, then we will have actually cut the original increase in half.
What would that be on millage?
20.85.
Okay. Good on, that's it.
So, anybody else have any other thoughts?
a question.
Mhm.
If we didn't make any changes, can we do that?
That's your decision.
Wait, it's up to our, it's
I
our
mean, we can
discretion.
do that as a...
We can do that, yeah.
I'm just curious.
I mean, considering how close the vote was, it could have gone either way. But my feeling is that we should take some sort of action, even if it's just the 17,000. Because what we can do is we can say we took the increase from this, cut it in half.
I don't know.
But that's my personal opinion.
Outside, where would, you know, where would be beyond 17,000? Seems like, I know I got your numbers too, but, it's pretty easy.
Kelly, is my number correct, 17? I might be off by $50.
That's unacceptable.
Okay.
What's your number show yet?
You got, I didn't bring them with me.
I mean, and all you're basing that on is you're saying that the initial increase was how much?
$1,334,040.
And so what you're saying is that that divided in half would be what we already cut plus.
Does anybody know where the 17,000 is going to come from? I mean, I know you can't. But we can look at it.
Is that your honest feeling?
$17,020.
The general public wants us to cut?
I have not had anybody tell me a number.
What do you think?
I think if we cut the original in half, I think that shows a great deal of effort. And again, it's up to the voters to accept it or not.
I think we're just bringing them back, and we're just looking for a lot of trouble. We could just keep bringing the public back. You've got to cut $500,000.
So you're suggesting cutting another half, $500,000?
Definitely easier.
From the town. But
That's why I proposed Board of Ed.
You're saying from the town side, Ted?
Yes.
It's not Board of Ed?
Yeah. We're not cutting from the Board of Ed as far as I'm concerned.
well, yeah, but the thing with that is that if you bring that down, are you even covering raises with that?
No.
Mandatory raises, I mean? No, so we can't do that. I mean, absolutely not.
I think
I would be more inclined to do 1.4% of the difference in 8,340, because that's what it lost by, it was 4 votes. So I would be okay with $17,020, which would be exactly half.
That's only going to get rejected, and then we'll do it all over
Well,
again.
you know what, we don't know that, because it was only
I'm
rejected
sorry, I
by 4
didn't hear you.
people.
I was talking, I didn't hear you.
There was only 4 people that voted that it's going to get rejected. And if it does, we could always make another cut at that time.
I just think now,
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And if it don't happen, we'll bring the people back another time. So by the time we're all over, we'll bring the people back 3 or 4 times, and they'll say, what the hell are you doing?
so where would you
They
take it
don't know
from?
what you're doing.
You want to take it from what, the
And
pool?
what we're doing is,
Would
we're
you
trying to
take-
wear
would
them, excuse me,
Would you take it from the
I'll
pool,
be done in a
recreation?
minute. I'll be done in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What we will be doing is bringing the general public back and beating on them and say, we're going to beat you until we win it our way. That's not fair. We know what they want. They don't want any increase. There's something wrong with the whole system. Why are people paying 15, 20, 25%? What's the entire budget go up? 2%, 3%?
3% on each side.
3% on each side.
Pardon?
3% on each side, Board of Ed's in the town.
I talked to a lady yesterday, her taxes are going up $1,000, which is equal to 25%. She wants to know if the budget went up less than 5, how come she's paying 25%? Somebody's got to answer that question. My taxes are going up 15%. The budget only went up 3%, 4%.
It's the
So what's going on
reevaluation.
here is,
Are you asking me a question?
No.
Okay.
Is industrial commercial going down? I'll ask Kelly that question.
Yeah. Yeah, the
So the
residential,
industrial commercial is going down, so our rate's gonna go up no matter what happens. We gotta pay more. So we either pay it this year or next year. So as far as I'm concerned, the vote is the vote.
I'm sorry,
People have spoken.
is this a political thing? Were you talking to the audience, or were you talking to the Board of Finance? Because I thought this was supposed to be between the Board of Finance. Unless you had a question.
Is that?
I just didn't know if this was between the Board of Finance, or if this was like a political, let me talk to the people.
I'm not sure. You
Because it should be us, not them at this moment, because it's not citizen participation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm not, but you're welcome. You're welcome.
And if you didn't hear it, I'll...
Oh, I heard it. I heard it. If you want to repeat it for your own sake, you can. I'm just saying it lost by 4. And if we got to come back 3 times, then that's our job. We come back 3 times. If we got to come back 4, then we come back 4 times. It is what it is. This is exactly what you signed up for when you decided to run. So if the people accept it, then great. But you're talking about, okay, we crippled the town now or next year. Well, I'd rather see what they do this next year. Yeah, it went up. My valuation went up. My house valuation did go up. So it is a legitimate increase. Everybody's going to go up regardless. Do we want it to? Absolutely not. But I'd rather see it for the betterment of my town. Now, granted, I have kids here, so I'm vested in that, right? I want them to have that. Would you rather cut the pool? Would you rather cut recreation? Would you rather cut activities? Parks? Because I don't know about you, I come in and I teach my kids how to ride their bikes around this park. We go and we play softball in this park. We throw birthday parties in that pavilion. Do I want that to be taken care of? Absolutely. We take advantage of that. So, no, I don't want to cut that much. You know? If you ask me, I would do $17,020. I would never do $500,000. That's ridiculous. You're not even covering contractual increases with that. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to hear from someone else on the board with additional comments or insight or questions.
Well, with your suggestion of the 17, we could vote on that, and if that were passed by the board, see how the public would take it. Knowing that, yes, we may very well be back here. But
It's written into the charter that scenario could exist, okay? Obviously, we don't want that scenario to unfold, but at the same time, we have to take in all the information that we have, and I feel your pain. I'm in a 25 to 30% tax increase over the last year. I anticipated some tax increase. Did I anticipate what I'm seeing? No. But after delving into what we have to work with as far as, like you mentioned, contractual increases, we also have the increase in utilities and the increase in fuel. Some of these costs are hitting everybody, okay? Do I like the fact that my taxes will probably go up $600–700? I don't like it at all. But unfortunately, that is a reality if we're going to be able to maintain the services that we have for the town and to operate as effectively and safely as we can. So I'm going to stick with my number of 17,000. So that we show the public that we cut the increase in half. And it's up to them to decide whether or not they accept that.
Well, you have in there a rec assistant for $51K. You don't have anything there now. What would have a rec program coordinator for 30, which is not there now. Part-time, okay, never mind. You have a 10% pay raise for the custodian rec.
I believe that's because they went from part-time to full-time. Is that correct?
So $51K alone right there for the rec assistant. And then in the pool coordinator, 48 and change, and your pool receipt's only going to be $38,000. Doesn't even cover the cost for the coordinator. So right there is almost $100,000. Just two people.
I'll agree with your numbers, but personally, I'm not going to recommend that we cut any item in anybody's budget. I'll tell the town you have to cut. You make the decision. I'll tell the school board you have to cut. You tell me where. All I care about is the top number. I'm not going to start digging into who's more important and this and that, and I just don't feel I have that ability.
I agree, but I'm just looking at the numbers.
I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying, but I was more addressing it to Adrian. He's the one that said, cut this, cut that.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I'm just saying, is that what we would cut? Because if we did 500,000, then yes, you're cutting the majority of that. So no, I'm not telling you where, I'm giving you examples. No, I'm not telling you this person, this coordinator, that coordinator. But 500,000, then yeah, you might as well throw us out the window because we can't even meet it.
Any other thoughts?
Let's split the difference like we did last time.
Okay,
All right, Don, you were about to say something.
no, well, like that, so let's split the difference. What's the difference there, Ted? You want
I want 5, between 17 and 5.
17?
I'm not good at math, what's that?
Okay.
Well, you want 500,000, I want 17,000.
I hear you.
Let's say 200.
So add 5.
How about 200,000 then? 200,000 roughly,
Yeah, yeah, that's good,
keep it even.
that's good.
I'm going to make the motion that we cut the budget by $17,020.
Okay? We have a motion to cut the budget specifically from the town side. Is it?
Specific from the town side.
Town side, $17,020.
That's exactly half.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Adrian and a second by Tom to cut the town side budget.
And vote.
Yes, by $17,020. Is there any other discussion before I call for a vote? Okay, we have a motion on the table, made by Adrian, seconded by Tom, to cut the town-side budget by $17,020. I will call for a hand vote on this. All those in favor, please signify yes by raising your right hand. So we have 3 and 4. All those opposed signify by raising. We have a split decision, so the motion does not pass. Question becomes, is do we cut nothing, or do we cut less, or do we cut more?
I'd like to make a motion that we cut $200,000 off the selectmen's side of the budget.
Okay. We have a motion by Ted that we cut $200,000 from the town side. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Don. Any other discussion?
I would mention in that if we were to go with an amount like that, one thing that the Board of Finance has done in the past is we do have the ability to mention a certain department which we would not want a cut impacting. So personally, if we were to end up going with 200,000, I would not want to see the police department affected anymore. Because the last 250,000, they have already taken some major hits. Granted, with not having the police department, the question will still remain, where the heck does the rest of that come from? But then, maybe we need to rework the number. Maybe 200,000 is not the number. But I will specifically say that having looked at the last 250,000 that the Board of Selectmen had cut, there was a good number, obviously, that was affected by the police department. And I know I talked to a number of people in the public who said they noticed that, and that has really bothered them of how much they've already been affected and would not want to see it continue.
Okay.
Is that an amendment to the motion?
I don't think it's an
It's
amendment.
a comment.
It's a personal comment.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Well,
Good
I'm
idea.
asking, do you want to amend the motion to read that?
That's your motion.
I just made the comment.
I'll amend the motion.
I don't think you can make a motion in that regard. You can't
It's only a
try to
number.
vote on one thing and then amend it.
So we haven't voted yet.
No, I know, but
Okay, I mean, I remember in the past that was something that had been done.
And I would,
I just think it's got to be two separate actions.
No,
I
Just a
think
number.
I would add one
that's
more.
part of the motion.
All right,
I made that part of the motion.
okay. So, a motion on the table from Ted is that we cut $200,000 from the town side with the stipulation, would that be the proper?
Kevin's saying you can't do it.
I'm sorry.
And all your job and responsibility is a number. I respectfully ask that you not add that amendment in there because you can't tell me what not to cut or where to cut. It's only a number, that's it.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, motion is going to withdrawn.
I have a question. My jargon is going to be wrong, but I know that we have what I would refer to as a prudent reserve. We have to keep X amount of money in somewhere so that when the town falls a bank. Now, I do know that we allocated some money out of the fund balance, I believe, for the cruisers. Is there any, do we have the money or any place in here to supplement it with that fund balance?
What's the balance right now?
What is the fund balance right now?
Yeah.
I believe it's 9 million change unrestricted. Kelly, is that correct? Fund balance unrestricted is about $9 million.
Yeah. As of last year's audit, we're participating,
We're
I
still
think it's
waiting
like
on
$1
this
million.
year's audit.
Yeah, so this current budget, I think we're using $1 million, I want to say, in current year budget, so it'll be like 8 million. And then the 500,000 we use for the renovation of the high school annex, so probably 75 million.
What is healthy? What is like, yeah, what is healthy?
2 months or 2.5 months.
And
So
what is
if you take a
2.5?
$50 million budget and divide by 12, and times it by, like 2 months, that's what should be in there. Because like an example for this, like if we don't get a budget and you're gonna keep coming back to, set a budget, a mill rate, my cash flow is gonna start running low. We have a lot of payments that go out in July. Union contracts, a lot of payments go out in July, so I need money coming in to
So
offset.
the healthy number is like 8 million, is that
Yeah,
what you got?
yeah,
And that's where we're at right now, 7.5.
yep.
Is the fund balance used primarily for non-recurring expenses?
It should be, yes,
One-time hits.
yes,
Should be used for non-recurring expenses.
correct.
Any other thoughts?
Well, maybe I'll make another motion, down to 150,000, we cut 150,000.
Okay. All right, so Ted has made a motion
On the
that
selectmen's side.
that we reduce the town side budget by $150,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second by Gary. All right, any questions or discussion before we go to the vote? Okay, we have a motion on the table that would cut $150,000 from the town side. So all those in favor of this, please signify by raising your right hand. We have 3, 4. All those opposed? 3 against. This motion does not carry.
right. You said 150? I'll make a motion that we cut the budget by 100,000.
Okay, Adrian made a motion that we cut the budget on the town side, is that correct?
From the town side, yes.
By 100,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by Adrian, seconded by Tom, to reduce the budget on the town side by $100,000. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, at this time, we'll move on to discussion and review of the town financial report.
Can you make noted the mill rate would be 20.79?
Okay, thank you. All right.
20.79.
Okay. At this point, we will discuss and review the town's financial report for the current fiscal year. I would like clarification on page 1, if possible. According to this, we estimated on a full rent of $75,000 and we've already collected $67,000, is that correct?
Yep, correct.
The other notation I would like is on back tax revenue, we've exceeded that by $165,000.
Yes.
Where does most of that come from?
Those are back taxes that aren't put in suspense. So tonight, you guys moved the
Okay.
money into suspense, so it's not considered like a revenue source.
Mhm.
Or I would offset a liability account. So this is revenue that are back taxes not yet moved in suspense.
Okay.
This was under the old system. We would have increased by just over $500,000.
Yeah.
Right, any other questions on page 1? Actually, I have another question. This is kind of on the page, top of page 2. But with essentially 85% of the year elapsed, we're already at like 96% on our local revenues already.
Yeah. Yep.
Do we have any ballpark of what we anticipate as additional revenues over what we budgeted? Is there anything that we can realistically forecast?
We could, but I would wait until July to make sure we
Okay.
get all of our state revenue and stuff.
Okay.
You know, education cost share, you want to make sure you get the $7,800,000 in. All of those are moving parts. Because if you don't bring them in, this additional revenue just offsets that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we get a figure on the grand list of how much the industrial commercial went down and how much the residential went up?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thanks.
Yep. We can send it to you. Yeah. We'll send it.
All right, any other questions on page 2? On payroll service, are we going to be okay?
I'll probably do a line item transfer
Okay.
for the end of the year.
Kelly, do you have any rough idea of, for the end of the year, what the total number is looking like for line item transfers, or is it too early to tell?
I was putting that together already. There will probably about 7 or 8 line items you're going to go through tonight that we'll do line item transfers for. And we'll get those to you either at the end of the month, which is kind of tough, but probably I won't be here for the first Board of Selectmen meeting, so we'll move it up instead. We'll have it for you then.
Questions on page 2? Other questions? All right.
On page 3, electricity under building ground. Didn't someone spend about half of what we budgeted for?
Yeah, that's accurate.
That's accurate?
Yeah. We have the month of April. So we probably have 3 months left representing here. But I don't know if April is posted.
So that should be really healthy funded back.
Yeah, for line item, if you have to transfer. One to another line item, yes.
And refuse disposal, we got much more tractor oil.
Rate increases.
Everything went up, yeah.
Rate increases.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Any other questions on page 3?
Are you gonna be okay with motor fuel for a highway?
It's going to be tight. Again, those are one of the like 7 or 8 lines we'll do the transfer for. Yep. You pretty much can see that anything that looks very close like that, we've already planned for line item transfers. So like the refuse disposal has already gone over, something like that.
Are we going to need a possibly line item transfer on dispatch salaries for the police department, you think?
That's going to be coming from the chief, and we'll work that out.
Okay. Yeah.
I keep in touch with him on a basis of how's it going.
Yeah, the dispatch size, it's hurting, but we got 2 more getting trained right now. Good for next year.
All right, so any questions on page 4? If not, we'll move on to page 5.
You never used any money out for
Relocation. That's a hit or miss, and for,
Even with the,
even with how things are going right now,
yeah.
yeah. So far.
Any other questions on 5? We'll move on to 6. So I have a question under the finance board. Are we going to be short because we're going to be doing more publicity for the votes in the public hearing?
I don't think so.
Did you know?
I'll be putting another 2 more ads in the paper this week. We
And
put
hopefully
2
we'll
in
do-
already, so we'll do 2 more. So roughly 2 or 3 will go in every time we go back out to vote.
Refresh my mind on this marketing number for EDC. The 10K.
Oh, the EDC number?
Oh, we got
Yeah.
the money came back in. Remember?
Yes. What's that for? The marketing?
Yeah.
We got funding from PBA, right? Plainfield Business
Yes,
Association. for
Plainfield Business
campaign.
Association made a donation back into
So that money
marketing.
will be going out.
But those are the flyers that are going out, so they made a donation in to help that. That's why we're over a little bit right now.
That was the total of their donation? Or?
No, that was Part of that is a donation coming in.
On the downside, on the down here, copy machine, is,
Yeah,
15,000 available, yeah.
yeah. So this,
hang on,
because we got new copy machines.
no, never mind, I take that back, I was looking at the wrong line.
Okay, any other questions on that page?
Are we all paid up on the outdoor restroom then?
That's part of the plan for the Lions Park. We've already extended some of those monies for the planning portion of it and also for testing out there that was done.
The overage on the computer?
Yeah, we have to still work with Kyle on where those monies were expended from, so it's still being reconciled.
Oh, so you don't really know yet?
But we know that's the number.
It's going to be a line item transfer.
It will be a line item.
It's just more computer, more systems, more software, I mean, it's a lot.
He had those.
And the towns and the police, and this has to be able to reconcile those which.
Is it still worth battling with because of the?
No, no. However, we have the accountability bill, and we had to put the, inside each of the cruisers has to have that switcher that catches it.
You talking about the dash cameras?
Yeah, and also in the,
Yeah, the
it's in the
modems.
trunk.
So the cruisers had to get updated with dash cameras, modems, things of that nature, along with computers that all interlink together and download through the cloud to a...
And I'm just wondering, is that something we weren't expecting, that went bad or expired or?
It's costly.
Was some of that
Price
with
increase?
the record system company?
A records management system with
Yeah,
next gen?
was it some of that?
It ties in all together, but primarily it's the dashboard cameras along with the modem. The modem and the internet, and Sergeant Bro can attest to this because he's been working on the project. That modem there helps control the signal to both the laptop, which has the records management system, along with the dashboard camera signal.
The modem is for the internet, so everything can tie in, send it through a server, and so it's all secure and no one can tap into it.
Any other questions on page 6? Yeah, I'll move on to page 7. Do we have any update on the police evidence building? You know, we still haven't expended any money for, is that just a bookkeeping thing?
That's a chief question right there. As far as the building, you might be able to comment on that, but...
Yeah, last night's inland wetlands meeting, it was there for the first meeting, so it'll be continuing that process.
Was the A2 done for that survey?
Survey? Yeah, Archer surveying was out last week.
Where are we on Del Road Bridge?
This is waiting for the state DOT approval. It's all we're waiting on, and we can then schedule a time for that to be done. Starting. That's going to be 4 to 5 months easily with the road closed at the time.
Any other questions on this report? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion that we accept the town financial report as presented.
Make that motion.
Motion is made by Adrian, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Adrian, seconded by John, we accept the report as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I do have a question on the monthly, on the summary for May. An over plan of $322,000 for tuitions?
John Richard was filing for the Plainfield Public School. The tuition is for out-of-district students, and we said in our budget presentation that we have an increase next year of $450,000. There is a significant outgoing tuition. The excess cost grant that the district applies for is paid in two pieces. One piece will be paid this month. We have not received the second share. That won't cover all of that, so that the number is real, but the other adjustments will be made to cover that deficit.
Do we have an idea of what the actual deficit may be?
The actual deficit will be zero. In other words, the excess cost grant is a little over $100,000. There's some monies in unapplied salaries that we'll take a look at. There's other sources.
Okay.
We did a premium holiday for our health insurance, so we have money there as well. But that, all of this was planned for, it just hasn't been acted on yet. The premium holiday return of not taking premiums from staff was done on May 5th. It'll be part of our contribution to the health insurance plan in June. So none of these are realized savings that I can apply to shorten the deficit. All I'd be doing is moving the deficit to another place to those funds.
All right, and so you're saying tuition will be how much next year? $450?
The increase will be $415. The total
The increase.
increase for out-of-district students, this is for students that do parent choice, to go to technical schools,
Yeah.
go to magnet schools, and others within this tuition here is also the special ed tuitions where we have to send people to facilities that they can provide them services that we can't provide here locally.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions?
I have one, I don't know if you can answer this one, John, but on page 6, ground supplies, we seem to have quite a bit left over from what we allocated.
What do you attribute that to?
It's, you're probably very late winter.
I think you may be drawing your finger across to the wrong.
Mike?
Oh, no, the ground supplies, it says there's a budget balance of $11,250.
Right, I thought he was thinking it was
No, it's the 131. That's going to be kind of leveled out.
If anything, he energy will be, that's one of the ones that the town was talking about. Not only is the town watching that, we can say everything together with one exception. I have substitutes. So you don't have substitutes, you have personnel issues, but not substitute teachers. But fuel, the tuitions that we have and heat energy are ones that we're watching very carefully. We've been fortunate on our side because most of the fuel is diesel, and a week from now is the anniversary of the highest diesel prices ever in the state of Connecticut, around $6.04, $6.40, I think it was. And if anything, our diesel has been drifting steadily downward, not rapidly, but it's, if anything, it's on a slight decrease, and that's helping us in the fuel area. But gasoline, we're seeing an increase, and we don't use as much gas as perhaps the town does, but the point is we're both watching what's happening. And gas also, started its increase around this time last year, in mid-June. We're not thinking that it'll go that high, but diesel dropped but didn't go back to the original. Gas dropped, went below the original, but is coming back up over. So it's a tough thing to have to try to manage and forecast, but we do the best we can, and those are areas that, as the town mentioned, we're also looking at. When I work with the Board of Education, I'll be bringing transfers to fix those. I told the Board of Education that, as George Washington would with his cherry tree, I can tell no lies. Our subs are $30 in the hole, but that number was because I put funding in April. It's not going to make it to the end of the year. It hasn't even made it out of this part, but we're watching it, and those funds that I talked about, everything is in the feasible range for us to finish the year without a deficit.
Well, what was the, so what is actually included in ground supplies? Is that solid waste?
Ground supplies is also maintenance of the exterior. You cut the grass, you put out some plantings. It's more than just road clear. It's the building itself, and it includes some field preparation. So things at the high school, they've had some good sports seasons. I think baseball's #1, so they'll be in the playoffs. And we need to, with the growing season, you need to cut the grass and keep the fields playable so the ball doesn't roll, stop, and be hidden.
Oh, no, I mean,
Do they do a little more in ground supplies, like this one here, when you put fertilizer down, stuff like that?
This year, in terms of ground supplies, yes, because it's not the roadways. The roadways would have been in the winter, and we had them out of winter. So I think we've talked about in the past, one of the purchases that we made at the middle school was to have a replacement tractor with snow equipment that turned out we didn't need to put into full operation. But you don't know that. So that was a commitment that we made. But other than that, the spending on winter really has been, I guess, a blessing. You can't say, okay, next year make it that way. Cut lines and say, well, we'll just have a good winter next year. That, of course, is not the way we can do it. But the notion of grounds is really taking care of the properties in both interiors and exterior facilities.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion that we accept this.
For the secretary and the business manager for Plainfield Public School.
If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion that we accept this report as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion has been made by Adrian to accept this report. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Adrian to accept this report, seconded by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. At this time, I will open up the floor to anybody who wishes to make public comment. I don't have a microphone set up, but I think we're a close enough group that you'll be able to be heard, whatever you have to contribute. But I would ask that you just stand where you are and give your name and whether or not you're a resident of the town of Plainfield.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. And your name?
Richard Copeland from, I'm a resident of Plainfield.
Okay.
If I understood the first selectman correct, because the town budget did not pass, we have to vote again on the town budget, the school board budget, and the capital improvement budget again?
Yes, sir.
Has any cuts been made to the capital improvement?
Originally, I believe there were some cuts made to the capital improvement. The original set of cuts called for $400,000 from the Board of Ed side and $250,000 from the town side, and that was broken up, I believe, between town general and capital.
You asking specifically about the capital improvement program, 5-year capital? Or are you like asking about other items?
No, the capital, the capital improvements have gone down, which,
The 5-year, yes, the capital improvements have gone down within the budget over the process, but I didn't know if you were specifically asking about the 5-year capital. That was the third question on the vote.
5-year cap. So
The
two
three-
of them passed.
Yeah, the third one is called a 5-year capital. A 5-year capital is a plan of how you'd like to be able to utilize things over the next 5 years of capital purchases. And what you do is, there's lots of reasons why you put that out there. You want the public to know what items are on there that you're planning to do over the next 5 years. You also are looking for, any of those items that are on there may be eligible at that point for grant monies. So if you don't put it on there, that means you're not planning. And then usually a grant company would say, no, we're not going to be able to fund you because you never planned for it. So that's why they're on there. They're not really things that are in the budget. They're just basically 5-year capital items for future.
So we'll have those 3 votes again, which I'm assuming will probably be in about 2 weeks.
May 30th.
May 30th?
Yes, on May 22nd, there'll be another public hearing.
Public, yeah.
And then on May 30th, there'll actually be a town meeting where we have a vote.
Town meeting, that has to be a town meeting here. It can't be an election like we did.
According to the town charter, if you are keeping your mill rate equal or you're dropping it down, at that point you have to go to a town meeting. There's no way to go to a town referendum. There's even a section there that says you can't petition to go to a town referendum either. It has to be town meeting.
Yes.
I'm Heather Smith. I'm a resident and property owner. The section of the charter that you referenced requiring a revote for all 3, can you cite that for me, please?
Sure. Give me a second. Okay, so this is section, language in charter section 2.4 makes it clear that the town's budget is rejected should any one of the 3 parts fail to pass. And that's section 2.4C. In order for the town budget to be accepted, a majority of those voting in the town referendum or town meeting must approve the annual operating budget for the town, comma, the capital budget, comma, and the education budget. A vote to reject any of the 3 budgets will constitute a rejection of the town budget.
That's from the charter itself?
Yes.
And is that the current legitimate valid
There is
charter?
only one town charter,
Right, which was revised last when?
2021.
And the wording in that particular charter is what was the revision that was made in 21,
Correct.
not 2018.
Correct.
When we have the vote on the 30th, can we make that well known to the people that are here? That if they don't approve everything, you're going to be back here again.
Yeah, it's stated at the outset of the meeting that all 3 elements have to pass in order for the budget to pass. If one element doesn't pass, then the budget as a whole does not pass. However, it is with the board, falls to the Board of Finance to review the voting and reflect upon the opinion of the voters to determine whether or not revisions have to be made on what element. So for instance, the capital passed and the Board of Ed passed. So we are not obligated, and they passed significantly, so we are not obligated to make adjustments on them. However, because the the town side did not pass, we have to make some adjustments because the public has told us that they do not accept that part of the budget.
So that's why we didn't touch it. That's why we didn't touch education or anything like that, so it passed. So all the cuts came out of town.
Peggy Bory, resident and property owner. Can I ask, so when a revision is made to the charter, that's done by a town vote, correct?
Correct.
Can I ask when when that revision was made?
Once again, 2021.
2021. We went to a town meeting in 2021 that asked about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we happen to know the date of that?
The November 6th, 2021.
And there are minutes somewhere that we can look at? What's that?
It's a town vote.
Town vote.
Yeah, it's
But
like
are there
election,
some
during
other
election time,
applications?
those questions are on top.
Yes.
Good evening, Carla Stratton's property owner, taxpayer. I think the question is arising regarding the charter question because there was not a question about 2-4 on the ballot in November of 21, which means that the language that is in that 21 charter is not what was voted on by the people in 2018. So in 2018, Section 2-4, subsection C read as follows: "The town budget to be presented at the annual town budget referendum or town budget meeting and any subsequent referendums and meetings if required shall be presented as 2 questions. The first question will be to approve or reject the annual operating budget for the town, excluding the education budget. The second question will be to approve or reject the education budget. The Board of Selectmen may include other non-binding advisory questions," sorry, I just lost my place, "at any budget meeting or budget referendum. The annual operating budget and the education can be approved separately. If one is approved at town budget referendum or meeting and the other rejected, only the one that is rejected shall be subject to revision and subsequent balloting procedures stated in subsection B of the section. The full town budget is not deemed accepted until both the annual operating budget for the town and the education budget are accepted." So it appears that the language has changed from what was approved by the voters versus 21. This item was not on the 2021 ballot.
That's where you're
So
incorrect.
I will be going to the town clerk's office.
Yep.
I will pull all the information and we'll have an FOI request to clear this up because it is not clear to the people. Also, there's 2 versions of the charter published on the town website, which also makes it unclear what is the current and valid charter for this town. And since we are a charter town, and it is important that we're all operating by the same rules, then I think it's very important that we get that cleared up and make sure that language is approved and published so that the public can access it easily and understand what rules apply. So that's just the first point on that.
And do we have a copy of the questions that were on the 2021 ballot?
Are we here for the Board of Finance for their questions, or are we here about to talk?
This is public comment, right?
But it's charter related to budget, and I think that's why it's important.
Do we have a copy of
All right.
the questions on the 2021?
I would appreciate it if you kind of direct the questions to the board, and then if I feel that way I need to defer, then I will defer. Having read through the charter several times and having had these conversations, okay, the town charter for 2021 is the one that we operate on right now, okay? It is my understanding that the budget is 3 elements: education, town, and capital. All 3 need to pass in order for the budget as a whole to pass. If one element does not pass, then the budget as a whole doesn't pass. It is then up to the Board of Finance to determine whether or not, based on public opinion, which is what we get from the vote, if we have to revisit any one or all 3. The voting was clear enough on the education side and on the capital side that those elements were approved by the town based on the vote. We then have to look at the town side. We have now come to the conclusion that we are now recommending another $100,000 reduced from the town side. That element now becomes part of the public hearing, where people come out and talk to us and tell us, well, we like this and we don't like that, whatever. It is the opportunity for the public to come and share their opinions with us. On May 30th, we will then have a vote as to whether or not the budget will pass. Now, my understanding on the ballot again, but the only one that has to have any type of change is town general, okay? If the Board of Education budget passed the first time, it should pass the second time. If the capital passed the first time, it should pass the second time. The question then becomes, have we done enough or have we done too much on the town side budget? And that will be up to the residents to tell us based on their vote. Yes, in the back, please.
So am I clear in understanding that all 3 budgets, pretty much for the operational budget of the town, you're considering failed to go back to a vote?
I couldn't quite catch what you said first.
First of all, my name's Naomi Smith.
No, the first two of them passed. We don't count them as failed. Only the town general failed.
Okay.
But we have to put all 3 questions back on the May 30th ballot question.
Okay. And what you said is that per our charter now, it's the opinion of the Board of Finance
whether they wanted to cut more from the Board of Education tonight. It was under the recommendation of Mr. Cunningham to leave it alone, correct?
Yes,
So
but it's up for our discretion.
1.8% of our town said no on the annual, and you wanted to either stay the same or only 17. 9 more people, 10 more people, let's give a few, said yes to one, and we don't even look at that.
Well, one was 20.
I personally, sir, would prefer to speak to the chair on this matter, because I think there's also major conflicts of interest on this board, because of discussion that I've heard in this meeting and one of the previous meetings that I'll be dealing with Mr. Cunningham and the Ethics Commission on. I don't understand how you are saying that the Board of Education should not have come back in front of you for the potential of even discussion of more cuts. We had a public hearing and 10 people got up and spoke, and they were dismissed in your after meeting. You said basically the voices of 10 people didn't matter. That's what members of your board said.
Well, I can't speak for the members of the board as a whole, but
It's appalling.
I would never dismiss
The
it.
message to the public
May I
tonight.
finish? May I finish, please? I let you have your moment. And I was courteous enough to listen to everything you had to say. Now I would like you to listen to what I have to say. 10 people got up and spoke. Actually, 12 did. Okay? Out of those 12 people, 10 people were very much against the budget.
Correct.
Okay, so that made it clear to us that we had to address some issues. Okay? When it came time to the vote, okay, the vote was not as decisive as far as, oh, we don't want the budget, because capital passed by 20, okay, Board of Education passed by 11, okay. The town side did not. So based on the opinion, which is in this charter, we are obligated to revisit the one that did not pass. We are not obligated to revisit the 2 that did pass.
I never
So
said
it's-
obligated.
So it's at our discretion, and our discretion at this point is because that vote was so close, we need to look at the item that did not pass, which is town. And now we have gone through the process of having discussions and finding a happy medium to bring it to the next town meeting, the public hearing, so that the public can have a chance to share and look at what is on the budget, not by what they read on Facebook, but by having proper discussions and open discussions and listening. Well, what should we have done? All right, and that's where the importance lies. Now, we're going to have another public hearing. And at that point, I certainly expect even more people to get up and speak. And then we will have a town vote. And the voters will tell us whether they're happy with what the budget is or they're not happy. And at that point, if all 3 elements pass, then we can set the mill rate. If they don't, then we kind of repeat the process. And according to the charter, all right, we're really under no time obligation, because if we get to June 30th and we still don't have a budget, then we operate on the previous year's budgets. And that's what we will do. We will do our part to get to a budget that is workable, but it takes time. And as I've said to many people, this is a process. This doesn't happen overnight. But it only happens when we can engage and listen to each other and take into consideration, it's not just what I want, but it's what is best for the community.
And I applaud you, Mr. Gorman, because I feel that your etiquette has shown that. I do not, however, feel other board members have shown that courtesy to the residents. And that would be my closing statement. Thank you.
And I thank you for your candor. I really do. I think you and I have had enough conversations that we can talk to each other. We might not necessarily always agree or see quite things the same angle, but at least we can have civil discourse.
I will just say this, and it has no bearing on this, so if I could just ask for latitude. I don't even think the charter discussion should have been discussed tonight, because I think after my conversation with Mr. Cunningham last week, my recommendation on this charter issue would have been to call a point of information on the floor at the town meeting, so the public would have had an understanding of how this board was going to be directed to move forward prior to the vote, not after. And that's where I'll close.
Thank you.
Actually,
Heather?
Heather Smith. Actually, related to that, I'm curious, what is the process for resolving the confusion over the charter language based on the question that was on the ballot 2 years ago, a year and a half ago?
Well, I think that the next step is get some clarification, or maybe clarification is not the right word, but definitive answer from the town's attorney. Because there's some vagueness to this. The wording has changed. However, based on my understanding, all right, again, there's 3 elements to the budget. If one doesn't, you know,
I think we all
Yeah, we all get
understand that right
All
now,
right.
but if that is what's in dispute, I don't see how we can move forward with any sort of vote or renegotiation until the rules that we're operating under are understood by everyone.
And I think that's a fair point, and I hope to have, you know, clarification information circulated well enough prior to the 30th that people have a better understanding.
Well, I think it needs to be even before then, because the decision to even put the capital and the Board of Ed budget up for a revote is putting it at risk when it has already passed, and you're saying it's going to be revoted based on language.
Well, I think the concern right now, and I'll call on you in a minute. I think the concern right now is to make sure that we don't open up ourselves for any type of legal repercussions.
I agree with that, 100%.
All right. And so that is why we're in conversation with the town's attorney to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. And that's the best answer I can give you right now. You know, and I understand that concern because I read through this a couple of times, and you know, first few times I'm like scratching my head because of the punctuation. And, you know,
Well, it's not even really, you have to look at that side by side with 2018 and the ballot in order to get a clear picture of it.
And I thank you for that. You know, the question was raised, why are we talking about this? Well, it has to do with the budget.
Right. I think
And
it's
we're in budget
dependency to actually having
discussions.
any kind of vote.
Okay. Yes.
Carla Desjardins again, property owner. So I just
No,
pulled
I
up.
thought you changed your name.
Yeah, so the 2021 ballot contained 7 charter questions. I just pulled it up on the Secretary of State's website. So there was one question that related to adding the capital budget. It said, shall the approval or rejection of the capital budget be presented, like the town government and education budget, as a separate question at the town budget meeting and the annual budget referendum? So I agree, that should have been added to that section of the charter, but where I do not understand why language changed. Shall is legally binding language, whereas it was changed to should be considered. So that's very different. That was not on the ballot. The capital budget was on the ballot, and I understand why that language changed. So it's the other part that's unclear to me why that other language was touched, because that was not a ballot question, only the insertion. So just a point of information, because it's public information, it's on the Secretary website. Secretary of State's website, anybody can access the ballot that we all voted on in 2021. So setting that aside, because we all have to do a little more research on that, this gentleman asked about referendum vote. Now I understand, because it's technically a mill decrease, it is not subject to townwide budget referendum, which is incredibly unfair to second shift workers, people who are sick at home and unable to come in person to vote. They're not allowed to vote absentee, people with childcare issues. So once again, that is a deficiency in our charter that doesn't allow everyone to vote on the town budget. What I would ask, understandably, the charter strictly prohibits petitioning. So we as the people are not allowed to put a petition forward in order to have a referendum for the budget. But my question, and perhaps we don't have this answer this evening, but I think it's worth reviewing, is if those present at the town meeting can make a motion to put the vote to a townwide referendum. And just a suggestion moving forward that we change the charter to allow for voting.
Could I ask you a favor?
If I can.
Okay. What you just stated, could you give that to me in writing?
Absolutely.
All right.
No problem.
And then I will do what I can to answer that question.
Thank you.
Probably the first thing I would do is read through the charter again. As you know, it's not a big thing, but some of the language can be quite confusing at some times.
Agreed.
But like anything else, you know, this whole thing is a process. And there's a lot of people that have participated in not only the budget process, but the charter revision. So maybe there's something in there that was, and sometimes, and I know in a couple cases it was a matter of mispunctuation. But we do the best we can with the information that we have on hand. We're not gonna make everybody happy. I mean, there's just no way to do that, unless you found another source of an influx of $1 million to give everybody the raises and cut the taxes and all that stuff, but I don't think that person's out there that's that benevolent. But I appreciate your contributions. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to get up and ask these questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get answers that are appropriate and adequate and answer, as best we can. Yes?
Mr. Gorman, I'd like to say how much I appreciate the way you've handled tonight. And it's been a very difficult situation, and I really do appreciate the way you conducted this meeting tonight.
Well, my only response to that is my dad's watching, or should I say my father. So I would not want to embarrass him by doing anything inappropriate or claiming to be something I'm not. I don't have all the answers. But I have a board that's very diverse and willing to engage meetings and listening to the department heads and their needs, addressing what they feel that they need to have, and understanding that some of them are real legitimate needs, and then also understanding that in some cases, as we've already seen tonight, they under budgeted. I mean, it's a small thing, but if you're budgeting $1,600 for refuse and you get a charge midway through the year, that's going to affect your budget. So we have to do the best we can, and we will try to give you the answers that we can. We will try to do everything the right way, but we will seek, information from the town's attorney, because sometimes that's where you got to go to make sure you're getting the answers right. And I learned this from someone, my doctor. And this may sound really silly, but this applies to lawyers too. All right, it applies to lawyers, doctors, every industry out there. Half the people out there graduated in the bottom half of their class. So nobody's perfect. The only one that's perfect has scars in his hands. And so we will do the best that we can, and we try to give you the answers that we can. And if we make a mistake, I've said this to the board members, I'd rather get it right than think I'm right. So sometimes I need your input to kind of steer me. And I would like to thank Matt Ray personally for his insight and the way that he speaks in my ear and just kind of gives me the right suggestions on protocol as much as anything else. And so at the end of the day, we're neighbors. So as long as we remember we're neighbors and we try to treat each other like, hey, I live next door to this person, I don't want to really get on their bad side. But at the same time, sometimes my grass is going to throw over on your lawn. So hopefully we come together and we have a good budget. We do the best we can, and I hope that answers as many questions as possible. Again, if we make a mistake, pull us aside and tell us, you messed this up. But if you do it publicly, you're bound to get some sort of resistance. That's just human nature. But I appreciate everybody's politeness and how they've handled themselves tonight as well. So, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, I got something.
Yes, sir. The handsome man at the end.
Between the, what do you call it, the hearing and the meeting?
Mm-hmm. You'll have to speak up.
So we're going to have a Board of Finance meeting between the hearing and the meeting for the budget.
Most likely we will have one immediately after the hearing. We will have a special Board of Finance meeting, which will kind of follow the protocol that we did Monday night.
Okay. The other thing is, supposing the Board of Ed budget fails next time.
Then we have a conundrum. I looked that one up, there's a lot of U's in it. I would hope that it doesn't, simply because it passed with a decent margin the first time. But, I can't tell you that for sure.
Well, what worries me is some people think it's passed, so they may not show up.
Well, then it is up to us as neighbors to make sure that everybody that can vote and attend the public hearing and the vote gets out and votes.
To me, the biggest thing we have here going, we can't explain why our taxes are going up so much when the budget only went up minuscule. We have to be able to explain that.
The
Can anybody help me?
Reevaluation. So the only thing, property taxes have gone, property values have gone up so much.
Did did everything go up in reval?
Yes.
Okay, let's say no. Because the industry and commercial did not.
Did not, no.
And those are the big
Residential.
taxpayers.
Everything went up.
Residential did.
Residential went up between 55 and 65,
It was
and
55
commercial
on
went
average.
up typically about 25 to 30, is that correct? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been holding my tongue only because I'm not a resident of Plainfield. But to your point, sir, both the revaluation affected commercial and residential as an increase, but the mix has changed. There's a shift. It's not that one is going down. It's one is getting less of an appropriate share based on what we saw before. It's a change in the mix. Everybody's assessment has gone up. So you may still be right on this question. If everybody's assessment went up 15% or up as much as 50%, then why is the town A looking at a 2% or 3% increase in the budget, and B, why would we have to cut it? Oh, that's my professional side talk, because we think we've provided a good budget. But the point is, your question, I just don't want it tainted to say that commercial is paying less. They're paying a different share to the total, but I don't believe they're paying less than what they paid last year.
No, I'm not saying they paid less. They're paying less than we are. They're not paying the same, they're not paying the 25-30% we're paying.
Percentage-wise, they're not.
That's what it all comes down to, is a percentage. Well, all right, that gives me something to explain to the people when they say, how come? Everybody's taxes went up. Yeah, but some went way up. And it's every residential that went way up.
Yeah, mine went up 70%.
What's that?
Mine went up 70%.
The taxes?
No, my valuation.
No, I'm talking about the taxes.
Oh, okay. No, yes, yeah, because I'm at $1,200 more. If it would have passed the original budget, then yeah. So mine went up a lot from the average.
Okay, Naomi, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So my proposal, even in discussion with Mr. Cunningham, is maybe we need to have another charter revision amendment committee, get some clarification, and then what we also need to do, seeing how the state wanted to quote-unquote pork all of us, is in our charter amendment that every 5 years when we have a revow, we go to a referendum and open it up to the town for a vote. Because we can change the charter wording of that. So what? If it's a revision committee, we can do that, right? We can revise. We are the legislative body.
We'll address it here.
Just a proposal.
Heather, right?
I just had a quick fun fact, I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but even if the town budget and the Board of Ed budget were zero, with absolutely no increase, the mill rates would still be 19.5%. I don't know if that's the exact math, but somewhere around there.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go. So it was going up no matter what.
Huh?
Yeah?
Okay.
I know.
I agree.
Anyone else?
I'd be remiss.
All right. Matt, you're first, and then I think Bob after that.
Matt Radant, Moosup resident, taxpayer, budget process enthusiast. My question is, I guess I'll of course direct to the Board of Finance, but I think Kelly would probably have a quick answer to this as well, is whether or not we have information ready on file that looks at what the size tax increases have been versus what the collection rates of local revenue have been at year end. I know that, you know, the mill rate nominally goes down, but it is, if the current proposal goes through, still a little under a $0.5 mil increase in what the tax burden would be. So I'm curious if there's any data to reference just to see the potential longer term impact of a larger tax increase versus a potential shortfall in local revenues.
So whether that's
Maybe
referencing
just a quick answer. I don't have it with me, but I have a history going back 25, 30 years of what the mill rates were and when they changed dramatically and when the revals took place. And in most cases, when a reval went up, all right, the mill rate went down, but not in every case, which I thought was rather interesting. And when I find that, I'll send you a screenshot when I find that. But I do have that information, and it's rather interesting. And you have a better answer, I'm sure.
No, you're talking about the collection. You're wondering about with the increase in people's taxes about the collection rate.
Right, whether we hit that estimated 98% collection rate or whether we...
So in the proposed budget, we're talking about tonight, we have, was it unanticipated? There's another revenue line in the budget. So supplemental tax on cars, vehicles. We added that into the budget to bring the mill rate down. So normally over the years, we didn't do that. That would go back into your collection rate. So your collection rate would always be 98, 99%, because that was factored in. This current budget is not going to be factored in. So your collection rate in the current budget that we're being proposed is going to just be your taxes. So you're going to be able to see a little more accurate if your collection was really 98, 99%.
Do we have a ready-to-go historical view of that, or is that something we need to piece together?
I can piece that together, like on history. I think it was 2008, 2009's last time something like this happened.
Right. I'm not sure when the last time we had a near $500,000 increase.
Yeah,
in tax
that was
burden.
a 2008, 2009 was a rough year.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so I'll look at it and let you know.
Okay, I think Bob, right? Okay.
You're going to need a charter revision here because on 2-4 it conflicts with this.
If I could just interrupt, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
You're going to need a charter revision on that anyways, because as far as I'm concerned, 2-4 conflicts with itself. Part A says the town budget consists of 2 parts, the annual operating and the school. B goes back to that on the pass and fail, and then C is changed automatically to 3. So the whole wording, the way it filed is not conducive at all. There has to be a change.
Okay.
You can't go from 2 being the annual budget to 3 all of a sudden being the operating budget. That needs to be changed. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just one comment regarding the town charter. I mentioned it at the public hearing, I mentioned it at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I agree, there's some things that definitely need to be changed, and I was asking for those people who are interested in Charter Revision Committee to do so. We currently have in this room right now 2 people that I know of that were on Charter Revision before. So I appreciate the people that would come forward and say that they're interested in the next Charter Revision, because obviously we have concerns.
I would be more than happy to serve on that board, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just about to ask if I would be eligible, and if so, yes, I would love to be eligible.
Are you already?
Just a point of clarification, though, just to know that this board does not form a charter revision, so what I would suggest is, just as a word of encouragement, is please go to one of the upcoming Board of Selectmen meetings, because that is something that they do sometimes discuss there, and make it known on the minutes for a Selectmen's meeting as well.
It's already going to be on there, we're all going to be talking about it. And the issue is going to be, the process would simply be, if you're interested in being on that type of a committee, a letter or an email to say that you're interested. I need party affiliation only because you have to have a certain balance based on the charter. And that would be it, and we'll talk about that at one of our upcoming meetings.
And when's the next meeting?
At one of our upcoming meetings. There's a lot of things that are going on right now I have to finish, like this budget, get it passed. So 6/20, the one we're going to have on 22nd is a special meeting, so we're not going to add it onto that. The next one after that will probably be another special one. I have to talk to you about that. It's going to be probably the 5th, and the last one in the fiscal year is the 22nd.
All right. Is there anyone else? Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being willing to speak. I think it's important that everybody gets heard. And again, it's a process. You know, we're going to do the best we can for the town as a whole, and that's about all I can offer you, is that we will do our best. So if there's no other individual that would like to make comment to the board or sit or ask a question, then I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
I move we
All
adjourn.
right, motion has been made to adjourn by Don. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Carrie has seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? What, nobody's opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Kevin.
All right, I'd like to call this special Board of Selectmen meeting to order for May 17th. And the time is now 8:05 p.m. Roll call. Kevin Cunningham. And no Scott tonight. Item C1, discuss and act on making modifications to the town budget as requested by the Board of Finance if needed. All right, so cut was $100,000. I do have a list. I didn't make a copy of the list. If you want to read along with me. I did meet with the members of all of the town departments. We went through multiple iterations of what can be cut if we need to. So, Board of Selectmen has a $1,500 reduction for supplies and expenses. Tax collector, $1,500 supplies and expenses and miscellaneous items. Buildings and grounds is $75,000 for the new staff, including benefits. And police department, $5,000 overtime. Recreation is $5,000 for supplies and expenses. Boards and commissions, there's 4 here that are listed. The grand total that would be $5,000 for savings, $1,000 in finance, P&Z $1,500, ZBA $1,500, inland wetlands $1,000. Planning, $200 for membership, $200 for training, and $600 for supplies. Economic development, $1,000 for training, and recreation itself is $5,000 for supplies and expenses. Grand total, $100,000. If you're okay with that, I guess you're copies. So I entertain a motion to use the list that was just read for our $100,000 of cuts as needed.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. 8:07. Thank you.